In today's edition of NHL Trade Talk, we're taking a look at all the teams in the Atlantic Division. Who will be buyers? Who will be sellers? We're going to discuss that coming up next. Hey everyone, and welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. If you're new to the channel, thanks for stopping by. We review and discuss all 31 NHL teams, so if you're a huge hockey fan, consider subscribing and clicking the bell so you don't miss anything. Alright, so let's jump into the Atlantic Division and take a look at all these teams and determine who's going to be buyers, who's going to be sellers, and there's one or two teams here that may not do a whole lot as we approach the trade deadline coming up later this month. Obviously, as of right now, it looks like there's probably only going to be 3 teams from this division make the playoffs, as the Metro Division is obviously the stronger division this year, and more of those teams, it looks like they're likely going to get in. So if you're not in the top 3 in the Atlantic, your playoff season isn't going to happen this year. So let's start here with some of the teams that are a little bit more north towards the bottom of the list. Let's start with the Detroit Red Wings. The Red Wings are certainly going to miss the playoffs for the second consecutive year. That almost looks like a certainty, and I think it's bound that changes are going to happen. There may not be too much here that goes on at the deadline, but there's bound to be a few little details here, and I think they're going to continue to work on this over the summer. I think they'd really like to move goaltender Peter Mrazek. I'm not sure if there's much of a market out there for him right now. Obviously, with a struggling goaltender who's been inconsistent, it's going to be tough to move him, but I know that's something they'd be interested in doing if they can find the right deal. Another player who's likely going to generate a lot of interest is Mike Green. Obviously, he's a pending UFA defenseman with the right shot. He's going to be highly sought after. The only thing is obviously he does have a no trade clause, so he does have some control over where he ends up, but I don't see any reason why they wouldn't trade him to get back some assets. I know earlier when he was asked about his future, he didn't rule out re-signing with Detroit. He seems to like it there, but at the same time, even if he wants to consider that down the road, that's fine. They can still trade him now, get back some assets, and then reevaluate in the summer. Maybe they bring him back. I'm doubtful they would. Nothing to do with Green, but I think they're probably trying to get younger myself, would be my guess. Obviously, there's some other guys as well that's been rumored they would consider moving. I don't think they're actively shopping them, but if the right deal comes along, I think they'd be willing to listen for sure. They obviously need to retool here. What they've been doing in Detroit the last couple of years has not gone well, and they need to make some changes. So I think it's quite possible that they're open to trading players like Thomas Tatar and Gus Nyquist. I mean, these guys are quite good with the puck. They can be really fun players to watch at times, but they both kind of struggled a little bit with their consistency this year. And it's not just them, the whole team has struggled with it. But obviously, as I think here, based on what they've rumors that have been coming out of Detroit, it looks as though they would consider moving these guys if the right deals are presented to them. Now, another team that I don't expect to be overly active, but I would expect some minor moves to happen, is the Florida Panthers. Obviously, it's not looking good for the Florida Panthers to make the playoffs this year. I just don't see it happening. They have too far to go to get themselves into that spot. And I do think they have a couple of players they wouldn't mind parting with here as we approach the deadline. They have a couple of pending UFAs that seems to me, I would think, would make sense for them to try to find a fit for. Doesn't mean it's going to happen, but I mean, Radim Vrbata and Colton Seaver are both pending UFAs, and I think there's a pretty decent chance that they wouldn't be re-signed by the Panthers going into next year. So I wouldn't be surprised to see them try to recoup what they can for these guys at the deadline. Obviously, there's a lot of pending UFAs. It doesn't mean they're all going to get moved, but obviously if a team has a pending UFA and they're not likely going to re-sign them, it only makes sense to try to trade them. Obviously, there's not a market out there for every player, so it's not always going to happen, but I think these are guys they would consider parting with, and I think the rest of the retooling for the Panthers will take place in the offseason. Now let's check on the Buffalo Sabres. I think there's going to be a few moves come out of Buffalo. The big one's going to be Evander Kane. Obviously, there's lots of options here. I think there's going to be a lot of teams calling on Kane. You know, he's a top-scoring winger and he can produce a lot of offense. And when you're going into playoffs, that's exactly what you need. Personally, I still think the Pittsburgh Penguins are the front runners here. I think they have the best shot at landing this player. But there are some other teams to keep your eyes open for. I know it's been speculated before about teams like St. Louis and San Jose and Nashville. And after a few things that have changed here in the last little while, I'm not sure about San Jose. They seem quite reluctant to give up their future, and I don't know if they're going to want to consider signing him long-term, which means that I'm not sure they'd want to really go down that rental market for sure. Team to watch as well is New Jersey. I mentioned that in yesterday's video when we went through the Metro Division. I'm not sure if Kane is on their radar, but I would not be surprised to see a big move come out of the Devils organization to land one of these top wingers to really give them a boost heading into the playoffs. Either way though, Kane's going to be on the move. It's just a matter of where. So leave some comments down below. What do you think is the most likely landing spot for Evander Kane? What team do you think has the best chance to get that deal done? Now, another player that I think the Sabres will consider moving for the right price is Robin Lehner. I'm not completely sold on the fact that they're going to move him, but I think they're definitely willing to listen. He's still kind of a bit inconsistent, but when he's on, he's great. But he also has lots of times where he's not on, and that's part of the big reason, I think, why the Sabres have struggled with consistency and really developing into a stronger team. So I think for the right deal, they would consider it. At the same time, he is going to be a pending RFA, and at the same time, I think they are willing to consider signing him and keeping him in the fold. But if the right deal comes along, I think he's a player they'd be willing to move. A lot of goalies, you're not going to see too many goalies move here at the deadline, so that might be something more for the offseason should they decide to move on from Lehner. Now, another team that I don't think will be too active but may try to add a little bit of extra depth is the Tampa Bay Lightning. This team is incredible to watch. I know I've seen them play against the Calgary Flames last night. At one point, they were down 4-2, and you thought the Flames had the game well in hand, and that firepower of their forward group just came back and stormed back with a vengeance and got the win for them. It's crazy how much depth and balanced scoring they're getting from all 3 and 4 lines. They really look pretty solid. Every time I've seen them play this year, there's not too many weaknesses on that team. I mean, they got some strong D, great goaltending in Vasilevsky, lots of power up front. I'm just not sure there's many areas here they really can improve. I mean, it's never a bad idea to maybe consider adding a depth defenseman or depth forward, but I don't see them making anything crazy here at the deadline. So maybe some minor depth pieces like a 6-7 defenseman or maybe a forward that can play, you know, maybe 4th line should somebody get injured and stuff. But I mean, they've had even pretty good performances from guys that are not even consistently in the lineup and up and down all year, like Corey Conacher. And Pekka's been playing really good for them. Matthew Pekka looked really solid last night. So I think they have more depth from within than they may have thought at the beginning of the year. So I'm not sure that they really need to do much of anything. So I think the Lightning are going to be relatively quiet, but I wouldn't be surprised to see them add just a little bit to try to help put them over the top to make a Stanley Cup run. So that leaves us with the Habs, the Senators, the Leafs, and the Bruins. So out of those teams, let's start with the Boston Bruins. The Bruins, I think, are a team that's probably not going to be too active here at the deadline either. They've been firing on all cylinders this year, and at the same time here, like they keep finding ways to get it done. They went such a long stretch without having a regulation loss. It's really quite a feat. I think Tuukka Rask played like 18 or 19 consecutive games or something without a regulation loss. It's really quite something. At the beginning of the year, I did not suspect the Bruins to be this good. I thought they'd be a decent team and kind of be a bubble playoff team. I didn't see them rivaling for first place in the division at all. I really thought after last year and everything we saw, they did make the playoffs, had a first-round exit, and I thought they might regress a little bit considering a lot of their top guys are just getting a little bit older and whatnot, but they've really come a long way. I mean, Zdeno Chara is still playing pretty decent for his age and considering all things. They've got some young players that are really stepping up. I mean, Charlie McAvoy, Brandon Carlo, you get Jake DeBrusk up front. I mean, these guys are looking pretty solid. Their prospects are really coming through, and I think that's a big reason for it. Obviously, the line of Bergeron, Marchand, and Pasternak is one of the best in the league, and they've got really quite a balanced attack. Their bottom 6 forwards play pretty solid as well. There's not too many holes in this Bruins team, so I don't think there's going to be a whole lot of moves that they're going to make. If they do try to make a move, one player I wouldn't be completely shocked to see them move on from is Ryan Spooner. I know his name's been mentioned a lot of times in trade rumors before, and even though he's having a pretty decent season, considering all things, he did have some injury time. If you look at his stats across the board, they do look pretty good, but it's also a good time to trade a player when they look a little bit better, because this last year or two he's been inconsistent and stats haven't been as good. So if they are going to make a move, that wouldn't surprise me. But at the same time, it wouldn't surprise me if they kind of held pat like the Lightning and maybe just added a little bit extra depth, maybe an extra defenseman on the back end, especially considering how big of a role Chara still plays and how at his age, and he still logs a lot of minutes. If somebody like him or one of their young guys happen to go down with an injury, there's going to have a lot of minutes to fill. So let's jump into the Montreal Canadiens now. They've been a team that's had lots of speculation all year long. We've talked about Max Pacioretty, Alex Galchenyuk, Andrew Shaw, Carey Price, you name it. Just about the whole team has been discussed at some point in time. I do expect them to try to make some deals here before the deadline, but at the same time, I don't think things are going to get too crazy. One player we've talked about before that may not be on the move is Thomas Plekanec. It's actually been rumored here that they may be working to re-sign him for an extra year or two, which I was a little bit surprised to hear, except to find out that apparently Claude Julien really likes this guy and thinks he's too valuable to let go. so they are trying to work out an extension. I'm not sure how long they're talking. I wouldn't suspect it to be more than 1 or 2 years, but apparently that might be in the works and might cause him to not get dealt. But as far as the other guys go, there was speculation I read today that this came from Montreal and some of their reporters there, which I know sometimes gets a little crazy, and I've been told not to believe everything you hear coming out of Montreal radio, but it was mentioned that Max Pacioretty believes he's going to be traded before the deadline and that he's going to be on the move, if not even ahead of the deadline. So I'm not really sure what to make of that, but I know there's been lots of speculation. I can see lots of teams being interested for sure. One team I would rule out, probably, I think if the Predators were smart, they wouldn't go after Pacioretty. I can't imagine putting him back in the locker room with PK Subban. Those two guys seem to be at each other's throats the whole time they both play with Montreal, and I'm not sure that would be a great move for team morale in the locker room, etc. So I don't think they're going to be in the mix on Max. However, I can see other teams, maybe like a St. Louis, for example. I think St. Louis would be a good partner for him because I think it's a good place for Pacioretty. I think it's a good fit. They got a lot of prospects. I know Montreal would really like a young center iceman in return. That's been what's been speculated, and they have some guys that kind of fit that mold. So that wouldn't surprise me if they do a deal that he could end up in St. Louis. Now, I don't think there's going to be too much activity here between Andrew Shaw and Alex Galchenyuk. I was reading today that apparently other GMs around the league don't have much interest in Galchenyuk. I think he has a lot of talent, and I think a lot, for the most part, has been misused in Montreal and kind of lost his way a little bit. So we'll see what happens there. I've been outside of a potential Pacioretty deal. I don't see a whole lot going down in Montreal before the deadline. I think the rest of their moves are going to be handled in the offseason myself, because some of these deals are just too big to do right now, that the prices would be way better to pay during the offseason. Let's take a look at the Ottawa Senators, another team that's gone through a lot of adversity this year and had a lot of rumors linked to them. They've had just about all the players at some point in time been discussed. Obviously, players like Carlson and Stone are pretty much untouchable, but other than that, I think Dorian's willing to listen, but I don't see them moving too many guys. I mean, when it comes to like Broussard, Pajot, even Hoffman, I'm not convinced 100% Hoffman's going to get dealt, but I think he would be one of the guys that generates the most interest. I think you could look to teams like Nashville, for example, or even in New Jersey, who might be teams to watch for this guy. I know they're going to be expecting a lot in return, and I think to be wise to hang on to him myself. Certainly some other guys like an Alex Burrows, Johnny Oduya, Nate Thompson, Tom Pyatt, like these guys could be guys to go. They don't play big roles, and they could probably improve a lot of their defensive side of the game in bottom six. Their goaltending's been terrible this year. That's going to be hard to fix, though, where they have Anderson and Condon both signed for the next few years. So I'm not sure what they're going to do in goal. They have to, I guess, hope for a bounce-back season from one of these guys next year if they have any hopes of improving their team. Now, lastly, let's discuss the Toronto Maple Leafs. I find the Leafs one of the more interesting teams here in this division to watch this year. And it looks as though they're likely going to be the third-place team in this division. Looks like the Lightning and Bruins are more than likely going to finish ahead of them, but you never know. There's lots of hockey left. But being the third-place team means they're probably going to end up playing a pretty solid team. More than likely be the Bruins or the Lightning in the first round. Obviously, it'd be an interesting matchup either way. I've been saying on here for a while that I think the Leafs need to add some extra defense heading for the playoffs. I will give them credit, though. Their defense has been better lately. They're on a bit of a winning streak here, dating back to before and after the All-Star break. And really, if you take a look at some of the young guys who are really coming through, like Wall and Travis Dermott have been outstanding. But one thing I'll caution you on Justin Wall, he does hold a record now for the only Leaf defenseman to ever score goals in back-to-back games in his first 2 NHL games, which is quite a feat considering how long this franchise has been around. One thing to have to keep in mind, this isn't something that happens a lot. The last defenseman to score goals in their first 2 NHL games, Alex Grant. Most of you probably don't even remember Alex Grant because he's not a very well-known player. Played for the Anaheim Ducks about 4 or 5 years ago. And you know what? After those 2 games, he ended up going back to the minors. And he's only played 5 NHL games since. And there was a 2-year span before he got a chance to get back in the lineup and get any NHL action under his belt. So you can't put too much into it. Wall's looking good. He's a late bloomer. But I think that they can't bank on that for the playoffs. They should add some extra depth experience back there. There's all kinds of guys that can play like a 5, 6, 7 role that are on the market that they could take a look at. As I think really when you look at Zaitsev and Hainsey, Riley, Gardner, we know how much Babcock loves Pollock, and then you get Dermott as well as Wall here. So I mean, they do have a lot of guys that can play. But when it comes playoff time, you need experience. And you can only give so many young guys in the lineup. They've already got Riley and Gardner. Even though they're good offensively, they're still committing a lot of defensive mistakes. So you got to limit that, and you got to compensate with some experience as well to go with the youth. So I think these guys are looking good for a future. But for right now, I think they need to add a depth defenseman for sure. Now, it's been funny because I think that we had some speculation not too long ago with the Leafs and Rangers hooking up for a McDonough deal. We talked about maybe how they might be possibly considering trading Nylander, maybe Marner, to land a big defenseman like that. But you know what? One player I think that there are actually two guys that they might be willing to trade, and I think they might be showcasing right now, is Kapanen as well as Soshnikov. I mean, Soshnikov's not getting as much action lately. It's kind of an odd man out within the numbers. But Kapanen's getting some playing time lately, and I think they might be looking to maybe package him or Soshnikov up. They might be two guys that they could consider moving to land that defenseman if that'll get the job done. I mean, not that they're not good players or anything, but they're just the victim of the numbers game. Toronto has a lot of good forwards, and they may have to move some of these guys to make room for a defenseman. So certainly leave some comments down below. What do you think of all these moves? Which teams do you think will be the most active at the trade deadline? And which teams do you think are going to play the playoff teams? I think it's pretty clear who they're going to be, barring a miracle. I think we get Tampa, Boston, and Toronto and making the playoffs from the Atlantic Division. And we're more likely going to see 5 out of the Metro. So leave me some comments down below. What do you think of these deals? What do you think of these teams are going to be doing at the deadline? Don't forget as well to follow us on Twitter. You're going to see our Twitter handle right here. We're also on Facebook and Instagram. All those links are in the description down below. Thanks very much for watching, everybody. We'll catch you next time.